thinking about how I would start off speaking with all of you and what I wanted to share with you. There's really quite a bit to my story, and if I share something of my story that really upsets you, I do apologize, but it is a survivor story. The book that I published is called My Justice, and the reason that I titled it My Justice was because for the first time in my life, since I was 5 years old, I was able to remove the heavy, thick hand, coal-stained hand that used to sneak into my room at night and cover my mouth and held me silent while my little sister lay next to me, and he raped me, molested me, tortured me for 12 long years. And to go into this, it is a very emotional. The book was very healing, very therapeutic for me as I went through the events of my life and how they had affected me, and the various different types of abuses that I did endure, and this is what children today are still enduring. And the one thing that I always like to say is that for every story that finds a voice, as for every call that goes into CPS, there's many, many more that have gone through vicious, heinous, brutal acts of violence and sexual abuse and neglect and emotional and psychological battering, but never ever are able to come forward because of the family connections, because of those around them, because of their jobs, because of the stigma that society itself puts on a victim, or shall I say, on the survivor. It's not conversation that you go out amongst your friends and say, you know what, at 5 years old, you picked me up and threw me up on the couch in front of my brother and 2 other boys, and violently, I don't know, I can't put it politely, there's no polite way to put this, just violently started feeling me and probing me and molesting me while he forced my brother to stand on his head in the corner. And as a 5-year-old, I can remember focusing, the only thing I thought of was my brother's head was going to explode. And I was terrified, and that was the night that he took control, and that was the night of my mother's bridal shower. And a week later, I sat in the church pew and watched my mother marry this man. And I was absolutely terrified and had no voice. I couldn't speak. I didn't know what to say or who to say it to. Kids today, young children, when they are sexually attacked, they do not have, first of all, the mentality to absorb what is happening to them, nor do they have the language to tell anyone what is happening to them. So we have to think about, what are they not telling us as healthcare workers when they come into your office and or when you see them out and about, or even in your family circle. I encourage my radio listeners to please watch children's behavior. Watch what the little ones are talking about and how they are playing with their toys. My Barbie and my Ken doll, the only way that I can remember playing with them was in a sexual manner. I was 6 years old. How and why should a 6-year-old be able to see that this is how a male and female interact with each other? This is what happens. you know, when they constantly touch themselves. They can't tell you. They don't know to say, well, Dad's doing this, or Aunt Connie's doing this, or Uncle Joe's doing this. They don't know how. Molestation of children, sexual abuse of children is one of the most silent crimes, because when you talk molestation, it very rarely leaves any physical signs. What do you look for? You know, mothers see a rash on the genital area. They think diaper rash. They think irritation. Doctors and professionals think irritation. It's a rash, put some Desitin on it, it will be fine. So if you look at who the people your children communicate with and who's around them, how they act with that person, what little signs do you see when they return from being with that person? Does that person make themselves easily available to babysit your child? Does a normal 24, 25-year-old man going to be willing to take on the financial support and responsibility of a 20-year-old mother with 3 children? He may be a very good man, and we can hope and pray that that is the situation. But many, many young mothers have men coming in and out of their lives. Their children are constantly around different people, and they don't know for sure, because we don't know for sure. You know, all of the recent people that we've seen lately that have been busted as predators and pedophiles, you know, that just shows us that, you know, no matter who you are in society, absolutely anyone can be a predator. Nobody is above being a predator for a child, whether it be emotionally manipulating them, sexually touching them, controlling them, because it's about power. They can make that child do whatever they want once they've got that contact with that child. One of the things that Dr. Albert focused on was that grooming issue. Many children are groomed. I wasn't groomed. I have no idea what grooming was, not until I studied it. I was just taken control of. Period. End of story. I was his property. My mother gave me to him to do with as he pleased. She never once stepped in to help me. There were many, many times that she caught and seen and witnessed different instances. At 9 years old, she walked in from work early and caught us in bed together, completely naked, with his erection rubbing up against me, getting ready to be inserted. She yelled at me and sent me to my room for the night. Also, when I was 9, he got drunk one day and loaded his 12-gauge shotgun, his favorite shotgun, and pointed it at my face and told me I was worthless and he would blow my head off and nobody would care. When I was 11, she allowed him to take me up to the bars with him. And I was the entertainment for the adult males at the bar. Everyone got a kick out of how this 11-year-old child was fed so much alcohol mixed. They actually gave me screwdrivers so it would look like I was drinking orange juice with double shots of vodka. Got me so wasted, I could barely walk. And then I was told, get up and go play the jukebox and make sure you shake your ass properly so we know that these guys are enjoying it. And whenever he asked me what cute guy I saw in the bar, there was a young 23, 24-year-old blonde-haired coal miner, nice-looking, typical young man, right? But to me, it was already prevalent. So much sexual activity had already happened in my life. So to say that this 23-year-old man was good-looking, that was nothing uncommon for me. I did as I was ordered. I had always done as I was ordered. And once he accepted that I thought that this man was good looking, he then offered for this man to take me outside and give me the treatment that I deserved, and how I would make this man very, very happy. And all it would cost him was a couple of years. That began the trafficking and the exploitation that would happen for the next 5 years. And sadly, I don't know if any of you are from Freeburg. Freeburg is where I grew up. Freeburg is where this happened. And I attended the same school system for 9 years, 9 consecutive years. I attended the same school system. In 1963, the first mandated child abuse reporting laws were put into act. They were amended to the Social Security Act. By 1974, all 52 states had mandated reporting laws on the books. So I lived in this small, silent community of 1,500 people at the time. Everyone knew who to call when I did something wrong. Absolutely anyone. Everyone knew by the time I was 12, 13 years old who the town whore was. Everyone knew what an evil, horrible, violent man my stepfather was. Everyone looked at my mother and said, oh, that poor woman, look at what she's got to deal with. Not one single person ever questioned the children living in that home or the condition that they were living in. I was the targeted child. Sometimes in families, you may have child abuse that spreads amongst all of the children. Maybe all the kids are neglected. Maybe mom's got her own broken issues and all of the kids are subjected to the emotional abuse. Pardon me. Maybe all of them get beaten. That wasn't the case in my family. I had a brother who was 18 months older than me from my mother's first marriage. And I had a sister 7 years younger than me from her marriage to this man. I was not a child. I was not a human being. I was property. I was an object, and I saw myself as an object for 30 years. When I was 12 was the last time that I went to my mother and asked her for help. And this is when he had arranged a party. He took my mother to a movie and got a case of beer and told me what to wear and what people to invite over to the house to this party. And I was the hostess. And then my little sister told about this party. So I got in trouble for it. And when Mom came to me, I asked her, I told her, you've got to help me. He did all of this. He took you out of the house. He called me to let me know when to send everybody home because he was bringing you home. He set all this up. This was not me. I'm 12. Where am I going to get a case of beer? But that was the last time I went to my mother for help. 2 days later, he came home really, really angry with me because I had said something to her about the payback that he wanted for me having this party. And he called me upstairs after dinner. I was the cook, I was the housekeeper, I was the caregiver. By the time I was 11, supper was my job. Laundry was my job. Caring for my sister was my job. When he had a little brass bell that he was given after his heart attack when I was 11, and whenever he rang this brass bell, no matter what I was doing, I had to answer. It didn't matter if he just needed a glass of tea, or if he needed his blood pressure checked, or if he needed a nitro tablet, or if he needed whatever, if he just needed me there, he rang that bell, and I had better come running. I didn't have a childhood. I didn't go outside to play with friends. I wasn't allowed. Every second, every moment of my day was controlled, and it was set up. And when I went to school, I tried to focus. I tried to do what I needed to do in school. Many of the teachers saw how my homework was rarely ever done. And I got beat one night for putting on my brother's flannel pajamas. I thought for sure that these pajamas would protect me. They were heavy and thick. They would button all the way up to the neck. He couldn't get to me. He couldn't touch me. He sent me upstairs, as he usually did, to go put on this see-through cotton gown that Mom had let him buy me from Victoria's Secrets. And that was what I was ordered to wear in the evenings after he sent my brother and sister up to bed. And one night I got brave enough, just a little kid, 11, 12 years old, and I come downstairs in these pajamas. 2 hours later, I was beat, I was thrown onto a pile of laundry, and I was told that I was dirt, I was scum, I was a whore, I was useless, I was trash. So the next morning when I woke up, my body covered with bruises, my eyes swollen from crying. My mother never said a word except, "You better get your butt moving or your sister's going to be late for school." So that day, there was a report that was done, that was due in history in my social studies class. And the teacher browbeat me because I didn't have it done again. "You stupid, you lazy, why aren't you getting your homework done? What's the matter with you?" I really, really, really wanted to stand up and say, well, my night was spent cooking and taking care of my sister, and then I put on a pair of pajamas, and my stepfather beat me for 2 hours with a leather strap, and then bent me over the bathroom vanity and raped me before he threw me down on a pile of laundry and told me I was trash. But I don't think that I would have gotten away with that. I didn't have the courage to speak. So at 12, after I told my mother about this party, and he came home drunk, and he called me upstairs because my brother and sister were watching TV downstairs and he wanted me upstairs. Went upstairs and he had a gun. He had his favorite shotgun, the one he had always threatened me with. And as he called me into the room, he made me stand in front of the bay window and strip. And then he used the gun to violently take my virginity. Barrel of the gun. And he told me that if I ever spoke another word about what was happening, that 12-year-old child went dead silent. I never spoke of it again. I was afraid of being trapped in small places. I quit bathing, literally made the conscious decision I was not going to give him the opportunity to trap me in the bathtub any longer because my mother would not stop him from coming in when I was bathing. The school system, the law enforcement, school nurse, school officials, my teachers, my schoolmates, my friends, what few I did have, every one of them watched as the dirt and the filth began to crust up on my skin. People were disgusted by me. People avoided contact with me. They kept their kids away from me. I was the bad influence. I was the one that nobody wanted their kids hanging out with. My skin, I challenged myself today in a way that I never thought that I would ever be able to. And I don't know, I'm going to step out here because I'm going to be brave. And as I was saying, my skin began to be covered in all this dirt. And everybody watched. For 4 years living in that house, I did not bathe. I was never given a toothbrush. I was never taken to a dentist. My teeth became broken black things hanging in my mouth. My skin, almost every inch of flesh on my legs and my arms was covered with infected, pussing sores. And as I waited for him every single night to come in and do his attack, I would scratch and I would dig and my legs would bleed and my arms would bleed and the filth and I was horrible. If you can imagine this child like this, it was more than it. My mother did not see me as a human being. She was the one who could have done something to help me. The school system should have done something to help me. I was the one child in this community, and I've never met anybody else through all of my surviving years that ever looked like me, that ever had the skin that I have. I've never let anyone see my legs without nylons. So you guys are a first. I figured you are all healthcare workers, and I want to talk to you about how you may be that one and only hope for that child who's brought in on an emergency, or that child that's brought in for that one single time. When I was 15, 3 years after I had quit bathing, my mother finally decided, for whatever reason, that she was going to take me to the dermatologist. And it's not that we did not have good insurance. We had the best. We were covered by UMWA, United Mine Workers Union. We had the best insurance in those days. She took me to the dermatologist, and I'm covered with infection and filth and disgusting and clothes dirty and the whole 9 yards. He looked at my skin through an ultraviolet light. He took a biopsy. He sent me in the other room and he talked with my mother. And we left there, and all the way home, she told me what a disgusting embarrassment I was to her, and how horrible that I would let myself be seen in such a situation that I would embarrass her like that. What the hell did I know? I just didn't want to be trapped in a bathroom any longer. I didn't want him sneaking in while I was showering any longer. I did what I thought that I needed to do to protect myself. Plus, I felt horrible. I felt disgusting. I knew how shameful I was. Every kid in town knew who I was. Weekend parties that were drug-filled and alcohol-filled, and teenage boys being called over to the house so that I could be the party favorite. Adult men who came to our house late at night, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning after second shift ended at the mine. On Friday nights, I got the call at 10 o'clock. Start getting everything ready. We got this many guys coming over tonight. I was the one expected to be the hostess and the fun. And I'll never forget the time that my mother looked at me dead in the eye and said, "I hope you have fun," and closed her bedroom door and went in to watch TV. And she laid in there while her daughter was the drunk entertainment for these 10, 15 adult grown coal miners who came over for the purpose of being entertained by this young girl. So they could get her to dance and they could feel me up and they could, get her drunk, do whatever you want to with her. The life that I lived trained me. Whenever I spoke of a victim being trained, that's exactly what I meant. If you put a child and you leave a child in that situation and nobody, not one single person, ever gives a damn whether she wakes up the next morning or not even her family, she believes, she is so well brainwashed, so retrained, the wiring all mixed up, her decision processes, her choices in partners, her beliefs that, you know what, they're being nice to me. My God, everybody that was nice to me, I clung to. When I was 17, I got into my first serious relationship. And it was from a boy, man. He was 24. And I was 17. It was from a man up in Granite City. And he surprised me one night. We had only been dating for a couple of weeks. And he surprised me one night and showed up at my parents' house and asked me if I could leave for the evening, and my mother wouldn't let me leave. Told me I worked all week because I was working nights. I quit school and I was waitressing in the local restaurant. All I could focus on was how can I survive and how the hell can I get out of here. So this guy was going to be my rescue. He was going to get me out of there. And when I wasn't allowed to leave the house, my stepfather says, "Let's all watch a movie together." Sounds innocent enough. Okay. So I sit in the chair with my boyfriend. I'm young, I'm 17. I'm very, very sexual about everything because sexual is the only thing I know. I'm getting over bronchitis, forgive me. But I'm sitting in the back part of our living room in the same chair with my boyfriend. My mother is in her chair and she's crocheting. And my stepfather's in his recliner. He decides he's going to put in a movie. Next thing I know, I'm watching Debbie Does Dallas. This was the movie that my mother sat there and crocheted. My stepfather enjoyed the hell out of it. We're saying, get me another beer. Get Lance one too, because we're gonna watch this movie together. Okay. All I could think about was, oh my God, thank God he's not getting up and running. Look at how nice he is to sit here and tolerate such a thing. Two weeks later, I went to my mother and told her that he had asked me to move in. And she looked at me and told me, that'll be good because things will calm down and be much quieter without you here. So I moved in with him. And for the first 3 months, everything was fabulous. And then all of a sudden, I got punched in the face. Then all of a sudden, I started getting dead-bolted into a second-floor apartment whenever he would leave. Without any phone, without any access out, contact outside. I wasn't allowed to work. I was beaten every night that he came home drunk. He'd wake me up in the middle of the night, choking me, cornered me. He sat in a corner crying. I was 19 years old, desperately begging for him not to kill me. While I'm naked and he's got a shotgun. I don't know why guys like shotguns pointed at my face. I'm like, God, really? But then he picked me up, naked as I was, dragged me into the bathroom by my hair, and shoved my head into a bathtub filling up with water and tried to drown me. And he held me under quite some time, and I was struggling to breathe. He pulled me up, he cussed at me, and he shoved me back down in the water again. Whatever it was that made him finally decide to throw me on the ground and start kicking me kept me alive. And the only thing that I can think of is that there was always some point of magic that intervened that allowed me to be here to speak to you today. Because for whatever reason, at that last moment, they wouldn't pull the trigger. They would let go of my throat from strangling me. They would, I've had concussions and broken ribs and broken collarbones and my face beaten beyond recognition numerous times, walking around in the middle of the night. No shoes on, no money, no ID, waiting for the cops to come pick me up and arrest me for vagrancy. Bloody and beaten, no one to call, nowhere to go. I know that desperate, lost feeling that these people feel, and whenever I didn't believe that anyone gave a crap that I was out there living like this. I didn't believe that there were resources that I could go to for help. I didn't believe that a women's shelter or anybody would help me get away and help me figure out how to fix my life. Unfortunately, as my relationships went on, I married a military man, and we had 3 children together. And through the emotional and the financial and all of the other abuses that happen and the control from being overseas, away from absolutely everything I knew, being in a different country. We were in England and then we went to Holland. He kept me overseas for as long as possible. We actually did an extended stay for 5 years. And come back, and I went back to school. He did allow me to go back to school. We needed the money. So I went back to school, and I graduated valedictorian from business school. I was so proud of myself, because before that, the only thing that I had done that was good was become a mom with 3 beautiful babies, and they were my babies, and nothing was going to hurt them. nothing was going to touch their life. I didn't see that what was happening to me was affecting their lives. When they were very little, ages 5, 3, and 1, he ran off with them. He ran off with them because through the divorce process, I went out with some friends one night, got drunk, ended up hanging out with a bouncer at a bar. I was that miserable, you know. I knew that it was wrong. I knew that I was cheating on him, and I knew that it was bad. But I didn't think that it would destroy everything that I knew, that 2 days later, I would be homeless, my kids would be gone, and everything that I owned in a 2-story, 3-bedroom townhouse would be empty. And I would be left with no job, no money, no car, no children. Stuck in a state where the only person I knew was the bouncer I'd spent the night with. Thankfully, he did give me a place to stay. He let me stay and share an apartment with him so I could save up enough money to chase after my children and move to Pennsylvania, which is where my ex had ran off with my kids to go to his parents' house. I had $35 in a U-Haul truck, and I was going to do whatever it took to get my children back. And I started by checking into a motel early in the morning with the help of the local church. So I had gone to the church about 7 o'clock in the morning and broke down in a mess, and a nun helped me, and she helped me, and she told me things were going to be all right, and she called the hotel and she gave them a voucher for a 2-night stay for me in the hotel. And I went and checked in, and that night they put me to work as a bartender. And that started my life.